And what's up, everybody? This is RotoBaller's official MMA podcast. Tap that. As you know, a little bit of a hiatus the last 2 weeks. Dennis is busy. I got my exam period, but any time can be made for this. We have another special interlude episode of Tap That. With me today, Kentucky pro heavyweight Harry Hunsucker. Harry, how's it going, man?
I'm doing good. How are you, sir?
Oh, pretty. I just told you that I got done with the first exam out of 4, so a little foggy, but the juices are flowing. So, Harry, is this the first time you've been interviewed from someone by Kentucky? Because the last few interviews I've seen, they were all Canadian guys.
No, I go on the Kelly Patrick show pretty often, and then I do the Sports Stove podcast here with Vince Stover out of Lexington. So I've done quite a few here in Kentucky. It's honestly just been I've done a ton over the past couple of months, but since my surgery, I've kind of gone on a hiatus, and I've been hard to get a hold of, as you know. Just because, man, I'm like, I don't know, lots happening in life. You know, I've gone through my first major surgery I've ever had. And, life got flipped upside down for me a little bit a couple months ago. So now I'm trying to get back to normal living.
Right. And we were all really sorry to hear about that, man. And that was, obviously that's super tough. So how's the aftermath of the surgery going?
It's going good. I just had physical therapy today. I'm doing that twice a week right now. And, just plugging along, and everything seems to be going well. They're giving me good reports every time I go. I was supposed to test for my 4th degree black belt in June. And every time I go in, I keep asking them if I'm going to be healed up in time to do that. And it continues to be a no. So that kind of stinks, but I can test again in December. It'll be fine.
Man, doesn't it suck how unconcerned doctors seem to be sometimes with testing for a 4th degree black belt and stuff?
Right. Yeah.
So with the general managing of the elite MMA or branch, I know there's one in Winchester, Richmond. I know I'm missing a few.
Yeah, we have 4 locations, working on number 5 right now. We are in Richmond, we're in Berea, Kentucky, we're in Winchester, Kentucky, and we're in Lexington. And then number 5 will also be in Lexington. We're going to go with 2 locations in Lexington.
So, I've talked to some people before, and I've known some people that have trained at 4 Seasons. I know you yourself have done some training at 4 Seasons before. And when people think of Lexington MMA, 4 Seasons is the one that, at the really established gym. What do you think that is unique to elite MMA that sets it apart, especially in the different areas?
Well, elite, we don't teach MMA at elite. I'm the only fighter out of elite. We've had we don't run an MMA program at all. We are a kids karate and Krav Maga school. So we do traditional martial arts, my man. We don't do any MMA fighters.
Okay, so how I guess, I've seen a lot of interviews that you've done, and what got you into fighting in the first place? I know you've been a martial artist for a long time.
Well, I actually started fighting before I got into martial arts, and I had a friend that we used to box and wrestle and just act stupid in the backyard, and there were some local unsanctioned fights going on, and he went down a couple of times and fought and won, and I was like, well, he's done it, I gotta go do it now. And my first fight, I showed up and I got the win. My second fight, I got the crap kicked out of me, and then I was like, well, I guess I should learn how to fight if I'm going to keep doing this. So then I got into martial arts, and it's been a huge blessing for me. It really changed my life. Hey, even take out all of the UFC stuff here lately. just training in martial arts has given me a career. As soon as I came out of college, I came into a career as a martial arts instructor, and I'm the manager of our business as well.
So, like, in running that business, and I'm sure you've touched on this several times, but what were the challenges in the past year of keeping all that afloat, or running and at its best?
Yeah, I mean, COVID, has been a huge headache for everybody. We had to, close down for 90 days, I think, for 3 months. Yeah. We were teaching online classes, and just surviving. We had to lay off all of our staff except for me and our owner. I mean, everybody got laid off. It was definitely hard times, but we're on the rebound now, and things are going good for us, man. We're actually blossoming more than we ever have, which is really cool.
Oh, I mean, I would definitely think so. I mean, with all the things that kids get out of martial arts and how important that was to have in the past year, I'm sure the response has been great.
Yeah, and another thing that's helped us a lot too, man, is there's not a lot for kids to do right now for group classes wise. Like, with soccer and football, a lot of places have canceled whole seasons. So, I mean, that's definitely worked in our favor. Not saying that we've stolen kids from that, but they just need something to do, and we've had a huge influx of new students since we've been able to open back up.
And I mean, not only that, but there's been so much MMA on in the past year that I'm sure interest in the sport generally has grown, and in martial arts in general.
Yeah, 100%. And then I don't think it hurts anything that now that I'm in the UFC, I mean, we're getting a lot of people that want to come in, and just, come in and train and hang out and meet me and stuff like that. And then it's helped our current students feel more tied in, just because we're doing something big out of Little Berea, Kentucky. That's where my school's at. So I reference, when you hear me talking about elite, I'll reference Berea a lot just because I'm the chief instructor there and I teach a lot of the classes. And we're a pretty small town. So, it feels good to be doing something big out of our little town.
Oh, for sure. And not only for, you and Berea and that, but, this has been a pretty big area for Kentucky heavyweights just over the past year or two.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
So, speaking of that, your most recent fight, Dontel Mays was supposed to take on Tai Tuivasa. Dontel Mays can't do it. You get the call, you step in. What's the thought process going into such a huge fight like that against a huge name opponent where the upside's got to be huge?
I've never had a heart attack, but getting that call is probably the closest that I've ever been to having one. It's a crazy call to get, hey, can you step up and fight? On Saturday night, it's Wednesday, I think Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. Hey, can you step up and fight Saturday night? And I'm like, where, who is it? And they're like, Tai Tuivasa. And I'm like, holy cow. I think about it for a minute and then I'm like, yeah, we got to do it because they were guaranteeing us the contract, I'm like, we have to do it. So, it was I don't know, man, it was a life-changing experience.
So when you say guaranteeing the contract, what do you mean by that?
That means that if you step up on a short notice fight, you usually get your back scratched for helping them out. You know what I mean? So when we stepped on short notice, we did it with the guarantee of more fights with notice. You know what I mean? With no more short notice stuff.
Damn. I would always think that there would be that, scratch your back too thing, but I never knew that for a fact, but that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm assuming with the surgery aftermath that you have no idea when,
we're hoping October, November, December, somewhere in there, but it really depends on, so I've got 2 more weeks of this like very light physical therapy, and then I got 6 weeks of hard physical therapy to get me back to where I can be released and trained again. Well, then I need like, normally a training camp is like 6 to 10 weeks somewhere in there, but I'm going to need a little bit more than that, I think, to get back in prime condition, just because there's a lot that I can't throw a punch. I can't hit mitts. I can't lift weights. I mean, there's so much that you can't do whenever you take one of your hands out of the equation.
So, like, you've had so much time lately, where you're not fighting, you're recovering from the surgery, and, maybe some time for reflection. And, your last 3 losses have all been to UFC caliber, UFC proven competition. The last fight was against a top 20 guy in the world who's fought guys like JDS, Struve, Ivanov, all those huge names, I believe Arlovsky. And, so overall, with the recent rise that you've made up to the UFC ranks, what's your overall takeaway so far, just over the past few years, and what it's projecting to?
Number one is I have battled with being very thankful, but also like, I don't know, man, there's a slight bout of depression in it, I've been very thankful because like I got to live my dream. You know what I mean? Like I've put my whole life into this and I've got to live my dream. Of course I've lost, which brings on some depressing moments. But I took both of those on 4 days notice. And anybody that knows me, man, when I show up and I'm prepared for a fight, it's going to be a good fight. You know what I mean? And the Vandera fight on the Contender Series was a good fight until I gassed out. And I mean, I gassed out because the 2.5-3 weeks before it, I just fought a few weeks prior to that. And then I took it easy a little bit and I shouldn't have done that. And I paid for it because, I firmly believe I can beat him. Tai Tuivasa is somebody that we've looked at as a potential opponent a number of times, but it's hard to beat somebody like him on 4 days notice with no training camp. You know what I mean? He's a guy that requires some preparation. You can't just go into that fight blind, but, I had to do what I had to do there. And, I feel like it's paid off for me.
And, obviously I watched both of those fights, at the time, and, you threw shots that, had they connected, at the right time, that could have been your fight.
Yeah. I mean, that's always the risk you take when you get in a fist fight. Sometimes it can end brutally in your favor, and then sometimes it ends brutally in their favor,
So is the approach now like, all right, I have accomplished my dream. Now you make other dreams, like, and moving forward?
Now I have really taken the past month or so and just like tried to decompress a little bit and not think about it a lot. I mean, obviously the next dream or the next mission is to get my first win in the UFC. But like I fought 4 times in 6 months, and that's more than most guys fight in a year. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like I've really just kind of like took some time to decompress and like try to get my head right again. That way next time when we come back, we're doing everything the right way whenever we come on the bounce back.
So based on that, am I correct in assuming that you're still on the no drinking thing?
Well, I mean, the goal was to not drink until I made it into the UFC, and I did that. So I've had some drinks, but as soon as we get a fight book, though, that's going out the window. I mean, this is we're in professional athlete territory, and I'm going to act like one.
So, you mentioned that you had looked at Tai Tuivasa earlier as a possible opponent. You mentioned that you think that if you run it back with Jared Vandera, that's a fight you win. Are there any other, because there's so much happening in the heavyweight division, not just in the UFC, but in PFL, Bellator, all over the place. Are there any people that you've had your eye on lately that you think are good matchups?
I mean, the fight that we've kind of called out on Instagram and on Facebook and stuff is Jorgen de Castro. So, I think that's a good fight. He's 6-3. I'm 7-4. We've got similar records. He lost his last fight, so did I. I think it's a good fight to make, and it's not one like I think it's one that actually makes sense. You know what I mean?
So I'm familiar with HRMMA, where you had fought previously. I don't know as much about it as I do about Premier in Northern Kentucky, but what can you say just about Hard Rock MMA and the quality and the value of coming up in a promotion like that?
I mean, they have jumped by leaps and bounds in their production and their quality, and then what they're doing for fighters. And if you're a local guy around here, and I mean, they're bringing in guys from Canada and all over the country and all over the world now, man. I mean, they're going to get you noticed. I mean, they did me, you know what I mean? They're going to get you noticed. They're going to get you the right fights. You're never going to get fed. You're always going to get a good fight, you know what I mean? Whether it's somebody that's on your level or whether it's time for you to level up and fight somebody tougher, you're always going to have competition. They're always going to find you fights. And then they really take care of their fighters and give you a lot of, what's the word? Exposure. They give you a lot of exposure.
I mean, and exposure, I mean, the value when I, heard that you were going in against Tai Tuivasa, it's you see the name Harry Hunsucker fighting out of Richmond, Kentucky. That's a recognizable thing. You remember the people from Kentucky because there's not as many of them as in other states. People know you as someone who's willing to step in. People know you as a hard hitter. How does it? What's that like? As someone who dreamed about this.
It's a lot of pressure, because having a whole state and a whole city and a lot on your back, it's a lot of pressure, man, but it's what you ask for. So it's fine. I'm not, I think I can handle it too, man. Once I get a full fight camp in, man, I think that I'm going to be sitting in a great place with the UFC as soon as I get a good camp in,
So what are your goals for the next 365 days?
I don't know. I just want to get, I want to spend time with my family and I want to win. That's about it. And I mean, I want to continue to teach and grow, our schools, obviously, but, I've been doing that forever. So it's kind of just second nature now. But just fight and win, man.
Those sound like two pretty good goals. If you get
right.
that done, it's a pretty good year. I get different answers from it. Some people have less time to pay attention to, the UFC and MMA, while they're training and fighting. But, have you gotten to follow it as much as you'd like to, or,
Yeah. I, now that I'm in, I actually watch it a lot more now just because it's
scouting.
It's studying, but before I honestly hardly ever watched a fight unless it was a big one. But I'm super pumped to see Cowboy fight. I'm super pumped to see Nate Diaz fight coming up. I mean, those are my two favorite fighters ever. And that, they're both fighting here pretty soon. So I'm excited for both of those.
Who do you think wins between in the Nate Diaz Leon Edwards fight, and who do you think wins the lightweight title between Chandler and Oliveira?
Man, I hope that Nate Diaz wins, but I'm not real optimistic just because Edwards is a machine and Diaz, he's just not strong enough to be in that weight class. I don't feel I think he needs to go back down, but I hope that Diaz pulls it out and gets the W, but I would say that Edwards probably gets that. And then as for the title, I honestly don't know because I'm not real familiar with either of those guys, unfortunately. I would say Chandler just because he's a tank, and I think that he'll get the KO like he did on Hooker. But, I mean, I'm not real super familiar or attached to either one of those guys, so I couldn't make a good call on it.
I tend to agree about the Nate and Leon fight. I think that it being 5 rounds, probably benefits both of them in different ways. I think Leon will probably be just a little bit too sharp at 170 and well-rounded maybe for Nate. But I would love to see Nate win because it would shake things up so much.
Yeah, for sure.
So, who are some of your favorite fighters of all time, or fighters that have influenced you?
Greatest fighters of all time. I think that you have to say GSP is the best ever to do it.
I agree.
And then, Usman is coming up behind him, though, man. He might be the one. He's a monster. Other favorite fighters, definitely Cowboy Cerrone is my favorite fighter ever. Love him. Forrest Griffin was a favorite back in the day. I really like Junior Dos Santos. I got to train with him down at American Top Team one time. I really like him. Stipe, you gotta like Stipe. I really respect Ngannou's story. He's definitely deserving to be where he's at. He's been through hell. The Diaz brothers, I love them. I think that's about it as for fighters that I really, that I really like.
Is JDS a nice guy? He seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, he was cool. Yeah, he was super cool.
Oh man. So, all right, but before we go, is there anybody you want to shout out, anything like that? Thank anything like that?
Yeah. So a couple of things really quickly. I've got this bike bike drive I got going on. Can I pitch that real quick?
Pitch anything you want, my man.
Okay, cool. So I'm doing this thing. It's called the Active Kids Summer Bike Giveaway. I took some of my purse from from my first UFC fight. I took $1,000 of my money, and I have been getting donations here and there, and I'm trying to raise $5,000 to give away bikes to kids here in the community. If anybody's interested in donating, you can hit me up. You can look me up on Instagram at hurricane_Hunsucker, or you can shoot me an email. My email is hhhfighter, FIGHTER 4@gmail.com. So it's hhhfighter4@gmail.com. And then big shout out to my manager, Pat, my coach, Mike Seals, all my training partners, the Kentucky Fighters Group, Planet Pawn, Omni Commercial, and just everybody who's helped me along the way.
All right, folks. Well, that has been it for this RotoBaller interlude episode. Harry Hunsucker, cannot thank you enough. I'm so glad we finally found the time to do this. This has been awesome. Best of luck to you in the future. I cannot wait to watch your next fight.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You take care, okay?
You too, man.
Bye.
Bye. All right, folks, that was Harry Hunsucker. So many thanks to him making the time to do that. That was amazing. Best of luck to him. So glad to see him in the UFC. And best of luck in him in his recovery from that surgery. But folks, thanks for tuning in. This has been RotoBallers Tap That. Another interlude episode. We'll be back to business as usual with the main card and prelim episodes as soon as my exam period is finished. Everybody have a great week and weekend. Good Mother's Day, I suppose, and enjoy the fights.